for a specific response or interview from the Minister of Law and Order. We have been particularly concerned about what has been happening to children. I myself have had the opportunity of counselling people who were involved in the 1976 unrest and have found in them psychological trauma still present, so severe that I'm left in no doubt that the present state of emergency and the present conditions that children are living under are going to be leaving with them trauma that's going to make their development, their normal development, impossible. So without further ado, let me introduce the rest. First of all, Audrey Coleman, who was one of the first speakers, at one of our first meetings, at which we felt we needed to sensitize ourselves to what was happening. She is a worker in the Black Sash organization on a semi-part-time basis. The telex that was sent to the Minister of Law and Order was sent on the 1st of October, and this is what the telex read. At a meeting with representatives from the legal, general, medical, psychiatric, pediatric, psychological, educational professions, governmental and other welfare organizations, and church, the following resolution was passed unanimously. We, the undersigned, noting that the state's continuing persecution of children is happening in the context of deeply rooted social, political, economic, and educational grievances for which children cannot be held responsible, are concerned that 1. Increasing numbers of children, some as young as 7 years of age, are being detained by the security forces in prison throughout the country. Increasing numbers of children are being harassed, abused, and threatened by the security forces, not only in prisons, but also in their homes, their schools, and their townships. 3. That no special provisions are being taken by the state to protect children from these various forms of abuse, nor to keep the society at large informed about the plight of children under these adverse circumstances. 4. That children are particularly susceptible to the development of long-term adverse effects of these brutalizing experiences, such as anxiety disorders, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, depressive disorders, adjustment and behavior disorders, and even psychotic episodes. We therefore express our deeply felt horror and revulsion against the state's assault on children and call upon the government to 1. Release all detained children immediately into the custody of their parents or guardians, 2. Put an immediate end to the security forces' harassment and detention of children, 3. Take immediate steps to resolve the conflicts in a peaceful, responsible, and constructive manner. In the light of the above, we furthermore call for an urgent interview with the Minister of Law and Order and a representative group from the above mentioned. I received a response from the Minister of Law and Order on the 3rd of October, where the following questions were asked. Where and when did the meeting you mentioned in the first paragraph took place? The names of the persons whom attended the meeting. Where, according to your information, are children as young as 7 years of age being detained? The Minister will consider your request after receiving this information. And firstly, we gave the information as to where and when that meeting took place. It was the 28th of September, 1400 hours, and in room 218 of the Social Sciences Block, Wits University. The names of the persons who attended the meeting we were not free to get because we hadn't consulted with them, and they felt we could give so we gave the organizations that were present. I'm not sure whether you want a list of those organizations, but I will give you the list who have given their unanimous support to the resolution when I'm finished this. And where, according to your information, are children as young as 7 years of age being detained? And that was from a press statement and was confirmed by Brigadier Kotsho, particularly in that school sweep on the 23rd of August. These are the names of the people, at least the organizations, who have unanimously agreed to this resolution. The South African Institute for Marital and Family Therapy, the Johannesburg Child Welfare Society, the Johannesburg Child Guidance Clinic, the Johannesburg branch of the Association of Child Psychology, Psychiatry and Allied Disciplines, the Family Life Centre, the Johannesburg Indian Social Workers Association, the National Medical and Dental Association, the Health Workers Association, the Islamic Medical Association, the National Education Union of South Africa, the Organisation for Appropriate Social Services in South Africa, the Concerned Social...
It's Children's Week, and Saturday is National Children's Day, which concerns us very much because we wonder in what context this is being seen by South Africa when we are faced with children being subjected to detention, assault. I thought I would just follow up with what Paul said about the 7-year-olds, that subsequent to the school sweep for the 23rd of August, it was alleged by a 17-year-old coming out of detention that when she came out of prison, she left there a 9-year-old girl who had been detained with her, and that they ranged from 9 and even some of them, there were a few of them, some up to the age of 15 as young children. So, you know, this is terribly serious that in fact parents are not getting visits necessarily to the children, and that they are held in this very severe detention. I leave Kevin to talk about what happens to that. Then I thought I'd use one example of children, of a 16-year-old. His name is Benedict Cttee. He was at home in Soweto, where he was picked up from his house by security forces and taken to a field and beaten up. He was kicked as well, and then beaten again with a rubber pipe. He was left in the field, and when he finally managed to make his way home, it was discovered his neck had been dislocated. He's now in a collar. This sort of violence that is happening all the time. We know of a 17-year-old girl who is brain damaged and sickly and has been in detention for over 3 months now. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to say, Paul. That's sufficient.
And a torture experience are detailed. Things to be aware of in this regard is that often the symptoms of the psychological damage which children suffer is very cryptic. It's very difficult to observe and to realize that the person is actually suffering a psychological problem. It's not as though they had an obvious physical deformity, which is apparent to everybody. The nature of the psychological disturbance is hidden, and unless one looks out carefully for this, this can be missed. And this isn't only our experience in our counselling work with ex-detainees, but it's in fact a worldwide experience. The other thing is that it's not only just the physical and psychological brutality and torture that is inflicted against people who are being detained and tortured, but it seems that when people come to realize that their life can end in a very real way, that their life is severely under threat and that they have no control over that, it seems to be that which precipitates the subsequent psychological sequelae. These sequelae can be extremely debilitating, and in fact often are. People are unable to continue in their work, in their normal socializing, and even in their normal family life. And while this obviously doesn't apply to everybody who goes through this experience, it certainly applies to a significant percentage of people who suffer this kind of trauma. Who have experienced the sense of threat to their life, some of the ways in which which they generally cope with this. When people psychologically need to repeat the trauma over and over again in a way to try and gain control over this traumatic threat to them, this will happen either in dreams or in full consciousness, and usually is not just the whole atmosphere in which these children are growing up is so pervaded by violence that what we really do, what is happening, one of the possible things that is happening to them is that this whole scale of violence is simply being escalated on a psychological level.
Perhaps just to say one thing before we open for questions, that the resources that we handed out to you are first of all a study of Chilean refugee children, a paper that was presented from a counsellor's point of view called The Repression of Children. That was presented at the conference Children Under Repression. Now, are there any questions that you would like to ask? That is the paper that Kevin has just.
Who's the author of this one?
Could you comment on the relationship between political activism, repression, and what is commonly seen as thuggery? The simple violent response to what is going on.
Not in any really scientific way. Clearly, the circumstances where...
Could you tell us a little bit about the Detainees counseling service? We'll go back on that.
The Detainees counseling service is an informal... what in fact we offer is a counseling service which has turned out to be really a crisis, and this is probably because of a lot of factors. For instance, the fact that where we operate and where we're based is very far from where a lot of the people who are being detained and where people are living. We're not immediately available and we don't have access. Also, because of the psychological nature of the complaining students. And so, in fact, whereas we are certainly seeing people and seeing adults and children, we counsel adults and children, we're aware that at the present time our service isn't being as widely used as we are convinced that it is before.
It really depends. To back that up, I would say that I've come across people who are fairly well politicized and who seem to have undergone very severe trauma in detention and have reacted very, very badly and have taken a very long time to overcome that. One person who is very sophisticated politically, after 9 years, for instance, still suffers severe trauma when speaking of severe, for instance, migraine headaches, just speaking about the events of 1976 and his involvement in that. So I don't think that one can really say. No.
Little sweep, or from others, have you been able to, beside the therapy, just begin preliminary investigations, maybe before they need crisis intervention? Do you have any impressions of what's happened?
Immediately after that,
Yes.
release.
And are obviously very traumatized by their experiences. And as I may add, are the parents traumatized, because parents aren't even notified when their children are taken. had an example of a school principal writing a letter where he said two pupils of his in different incidents, one aged 11 and one aged 12, on the way to school, on the side of the kids and family. We see parents all the time who have don't know where their children are as well, which is another form of terror that is being experienced, where children just disappear off the face of the earth. They go from one police station to the next police station until they finally come to our offices and say, well, we've tried everywhere. They're frightened that their child might have died, and are in fact, when they finally get it confirmed that their child is in detention, are actually happy to know that that child is in detention, because at least then they know that that child is alive, which is quite an indictment on our society.
And also, just to follow up there,
including the conf